Hallo en welkom terug by Ruhmoer, die podcast vir vars vrae in jou moedertaal. So today's another English episode, the first one in a while. And in today's episode, we are diving into the heart of romantic relationships, what they are, what makes them work, and what to do when things start falling apart. This is a conversation about attraction and values, trust and healing. And here to help us unpack what the real stuff is that makes love last is our very first returning guest, Andrew Meyer. Andrew, it is lovely to have you here, and we thought that you are the best person to have this conversation with because you deal with people on a daily basis. So we are very excited to have you. Alnika, skop ons af.
Hi, Andrew. My very first question is, it's a simple but complex question, and that's basically just, what is a relationship?
If you really want to dive deep into a relationship, a good definition would be being aware of the other person's state of being, knowing what the other person is about. But in general terms, there's many levels of a relationship. And when we all start out, we go to school, we're looking for a relationship, we're looking for a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a husband, a wife. That counts no matter what your gender is. So let me clear this throat again. There you go. So we think a relationship is the same thing for everybody. In other words, very simply put, a relationship is I meet someone and then we spend more time together, we kind of like each other, and then suddenly we're in a relationship. It turns out that a relationship goes way beyond that. There's over 11 different permutations of a relationship. We have a relationship with money, we have a relationship with our house, we even have a relationship with our pets, we have a relationship with ourselves, we have a relationship with people. So the broad term of a relationship is anything that we can relate to or that relates back to us. And this whole idea of how do we relate? If you look at our family, we have what's your relations or what's your relatives. So your relatives are your relationships, anything that we can relate to. And this way it gets interesting because the people that we don't relate to, let's say we went to a tribe in the middle of, let's say South America, we wouldn't be able to relate to them like we would relate to each other living in a modern society. So our relationship would be different. And one of the biggest challenges that I've noticed over a long time is we always think that a relationship is, firstly, there's one kind of relationship, and the relationship is the same for everybody. And that turns out to not be so pretty much everywhere. There's no relationship that's just one for everyone. And there are many different levels of relationship, depending on how deep you want to go into levels of relationship. That's what your relationship will be. And of course, when we have intimate relationships, our depth of relationship just goes deeper.
Is there like a basic set of things that need to be met, for lack of better words, to go into a romantic relationship? Is there like you need this and you need this and you need this for it to be a romantic relationship, or for it to go into a romantic relationship?
No, that's almost a higher level question, because a high level question, you go, well, do I need something to be in a relationship? No, most of the time you just need to be around somebody else. And the more you're around somebody else, and especially if they're lonely. So let's play it out very simple. I'm lonely and I go to a place where I see lots of different people. I start talking to different people. I find another person is lonely. So they're lonely, I'm lonely. We start sharing stories, and suddenly we go, oh, look, if I'm around you, I'm not lonely anymore. And they go, when I'm around you, I'm not lonely anymore either. Let's have a relationship. I'm making it very simple, but that's what happens. And people jump into a relationship. But if you look at it, when we drive a car or learn how to drive a car, you need a license to drive a car. You need a license to own a firearm. You need a license for all kinds of things. You need to be beyond the age of 21 to sign for your own bank account and be autonomous. When it comes to those things, we need more criteria. We need more. We need a license to do those things. When it comes to relationship, there's no license for it. No one teaches us the stuff, and we don't necessarily learn it we only start learning about relationships is when we are in a relationship and the relationship becomes very rocky. The relationship becomes uncomfortable, or we start fighting all the time. Or if you really want to extend it, I was in a relationship and then suddenly they broke up with me. And then the question is why? And now we'll start exploring this world of relationships. So school will teach you how to read and write. They did a terrible job to teach me how to spell. That's a different discussion. So, we learn certain things at school. We learn certain things from our friends and our family. But we don't learn much about a relationship until relationships really become important. We really go into a relationship thinking, I'm such a stellar, wonderful human being. And then we look at someone else thinking, wow, they're also this amazing person. We should be in relationship, that kind of vibe. And because they are wonderful and I'm wonderful, we're going to have a wonderful relationship until they're fighting, or they get married and then they get divorced, or they start having friction somewhere. So it's a good question to ask, and it's a better question to ask going, what do I need to go into a relationship? Are there certain things that I need to do or have? If you can answer those questions, it's a much better way to go into a relationship. But to answer the question simply, most of the time, we don't need anything. We just need presence. We just need someone around us. That's also when, we talk about we have a long distance relationship. Long distance relationships become strained because the person is not near us. And we'll tend to find someone who's close to us to go into another relationship. So that's why the long distance relationship is troublesome, and it generally falls apart, depending.
Mm-hmm.
So the topic becomes sticky because, I got into this topic because of the same thing. I love a relationship. I love being in a relationship. To me, it's like the best thing. I'd call myself what I'd say a serial monogamist. When I'm in a relationship, it's great, and then it falls apart, and it's like, okay, I want another one. Like, I don't really want to just be out there by myself, as much as I can be. And sometimes I prefer it, but that's a different discussion. Because I've got a good relationship with myself. So me being alone or being by myself is not a problem. Where most people find that idea of being by themselves terrifying, and they get distracted by finding someone else. So but as you can see, the topic of relationships it becomes like a river delta. It just starts to spread out very wide, very fast, and it's got many different legs to it. It's got tentacles. This thing sticks to you. Some of it's good, some of it's over a waterfall. Most of the time, what we really want is we want something that's not only calm and steady and secure and predictable. We also want something which is exciting, it's fun. We want more fun in a relationship than we do want, if I could even use the word, certainty or security. As much as that is important to us, but when we have certainty and security, it feels kind of boring. So we want some fun in it. We want some adventure. And this is when it gets interesting, because if you're not with a fun person, they might be very secure. They might be very safe. They might be important, significant, and all the rest of it, but they're boring. And it's like, this is boring. And I see like especially the ladies will nod. It's like,
of course we will.
love the certainty, love the security, love all of that stuff. Boring? No, thank you. and this is actually part of being in a relationship is, let's say I'm a very boring person, because I'm a boring person. It's great to be in a relationship with someone who's looking for some adventure. They're looking for some excitement, because they will get me out of my box. You also have someone who's, like they're basically like a shiny mirror ball that anything that shines, they're going to be distracted with. Then when you're with someone who's calm and centered, they'll draw them a little bit away from being totally distracted. So the relationship support, and this is where it gets the depth of relationship stuff. The support we get in a relationship is not to pull you away from who you are, but it's to expose things that you're not good at, and it's also to amplify things that you wouldn't have done before. And we support each other, and now we're having a relationship. And I'll go ahead very quickly. The higher you get up on being very good at relationship, it almost becomes it's a little boring, because you become, if I could say, too good, because there's no more challenge.
There's also a lot less drama.
There's a hell of a lot less drama. Yes, 100%. and that's one of the things that, if I ask people, do you like drama in your life? Almost 100% of people say no. And then you can ask them, so then why do you have so much drama in your life? I don't know, or they'll tell you a long story and all the rest of it. So yes, humans love drama, and we love being connected to our story, and we love to tell everybody our story. And of course, most of the time, we always tell people about our partner. Our partner is either this wonderful person or this horrible person, or all the problems in my life is because of them. And yeah, well, depending on where the rest of the conversation goes, I can tell you how people deal with these certain things. But yeah, most of the time we haven't had a good relationship inside of ourselves. We haven't had a good relationship just even in our younger childhood. And I'm not a big fan of going into our past and our childhood and stuff like that, because part of an idea, and not only my belief, my experience and my observation, is when you become an adult, and it's got nothing to do about how old you are, you can be an adult at 14, and not age related. I'm saying you can actually behave like one. When you become an adult, you realize that you actually can make your own decisions. So when you can make your own decisions, you can choose to either say to your partner, I'm like this because of, this is how I was when I was 3 years old. And that means I can behave like a 3-year-old in our relationship. Or you can say to someone, well, I'm like this because when I behave like a 3-year-old, my relationships fell apart. And now when I want to behave like an adult, relationships tend to work better, and I'm actually nicer to be around. So why don't we both make better choices so we can both be adults and have a good relationship?
You mentioned it earlier that there's almost this type of criteria where you perhaps need physical presence and you need perhaps that security, maybe a little bit of drama. I usually say I like watching Binnenlanders because it's drama and it gives me a fun time. But I think it's true in that people don't really notice their relationships. There's 2 times people Google what to do in my relationship, in my own opinion. One, when they want to know in the beginning of the relationship, how do I hint I like this person? Then there's no Googling in the middle when it goes okay. And then when it starts going onto the rocks, you're like, what do I do now? How do I handle this situation? Those are the 2 times people start actually paying attention to what's happening in their relationships. How do I better communicate? What signals do I want to send? So I'm very intrigued by that. And I wonder, before we get into, perhaps you mentioned now your childhood, but before we get into this romantic relationship and what goes into it and perhaps the physical attraction and all of that, I want to take a step back and just look at, would you say there is certain things that people need to figure out before you go, or that you'd advise them to figure out before they go into a relationship?
So that's a fantastic way to put it. When I talk about different levels of a relationship, this is something that most people are never exposed to. And as you say, people start Googling when they've got a problem. In the beginning, everybody thinks that they don't have a problem. Or the problem in their life is that they don't have someone in their life. So they're just fishing for a person. So they're not even considering themselves. If I had to nail it down quite quickly, if you could get rid of your neediness, you're ahead of the game. If I go into a relationship feeling that I need someone, the moment that I'm in relationship with you, I'll become very needy and dependent on you. So for example, I'll start sending messages and I'll want an instant reply. And I need you to, meet my needs all the time. And I move from having a need to becoming needy. And then it almost feels like people mustn't take my words as judgment. It's observation. We become almost like a parasite, like we're feeding off the other person. And once again, these are normal things which happen in relationship. And most of the time, it's because a person hasn't looked at relationship in the beginning. They haven't seen it from what it is, or they haven't seen it for what it is from the beginning. We just find a relationship. We never get taught how to find a relationship. And there's different phases of relationship. And I'll dig into it just now. You spoke about attraction, and you also spoke about being in a relationship. And those are 2 very interesting parts of the relationship itself. But if you had to deal with something first before you got into a relationship, if you could get rid of your need, you're way ahead of the game. And let me try and explain what I mean. If you feel that you need a relationship to make you feel better, then your state of being or your feelings are going to be very dependent on the other person. And the person that you'll meet and the person you'll get involved with and being in a relationship with, if they get the sense that you need them, they will treat you in a very different way. And if you look at relationships like this, because they exist, There's a lot of fights, there's a lot of arguments, there's quite a few shouting and screaming and that sort of stuff, but they tend to stick together. And they tend to stick together in what we call a toxic environment, because, again, they feel that I need you, I can't lose you. So they'll put up with all kinds of things. And it works both ways. You'll tend to find a person who's very needy might find another person who's not really that needy, but because they know the other person needs them, or it's a feeling, or it's an idea, they'll treat them pretty much like rubbish. They'll abuse them. They'll take advantage of them. They treat them. I'll give you an example. Like, you get what they call the people pleaser. So the people pleaser is trying to please everybody, and then eventually the people pleaser gets fed up. It's like, I do everything for everybody, and nobody does anything for me. It's like, yes, because that's how you set the game up. And we don't know what healthy boundaries look like. We don't know what it is to consider the other person. And the difference between what someone wants and what someone needs is very different. Someone says, I want this or I need this, two different things. You might, you need water, you need food, you need air. You don't need a relationship, but we want one. The thing is, we want these things so badly, we call it needs. I need a relationship. And when a person is not attending to our needs, then we feel that we are empty. We have a need for significance, a need for importance. We want to feel these things, and we still feel that we get this from other people. But this is where relationships generally start. We get together. I satisfy your need, you satisfy mine. I feel important to you because you're my important person, and vice versa. So it's like, oh, cool. Now we feel important and we are significant only to each other. And this is where the interesting thing goes of like, okay, how far up the ladder do you want to go in relationship? And do you want to have a better relationship? What does a better relationship look like? And this is where those tentacles spring out.
I wonder about things like values and perhaps life goals. Do you think of those things as non-negotiables before you go into a relationship? For those who have not yet listened to your first appearance on the show, we spoke about knowing yourself and your identity and who am I? And from my perspective, I see something like perhaps life goals, perhaps values, maybe your religion as things that you those are part of almost who you are, and or not necessarily who you are, but they help build who you are. Do you think those type of things, it's kind of fine and better if you together work them out in your relationship? Or do you think those type of things are best if they are determined in advance? Do they set you up for a better partner, a partner who you'll get better along with over the long term, or not really?
We'll take it, let's go very basic, and then we'll go to like ninja, mastery, Jedi level. So at the very basic level, selection matters. So the person that you select to be in a relationship really counts. So if you select a person who's well put together, and let's just talk about, we have our same values, we have the same religion, we have all of these things which are very similar and they're in common. At that level, yes, selection will matter. It's best to choose someone that's in your bubble. It's best to choose someone that's in your culture. It's best to choose someone that's even in your religion or in your community. It's best to choose that because you will have less friction, because you have way more commonality. And once again, that's taking a look at a very basic level. Let's call it the relationship ninja, the possibility or the need to have that to have all of those mechanisms working like that, it's completely irrelevant, because you're not having a relationship with their community. You're not having a relationship with, let's say, their religion. You're not having a relationship with their boss. You're having a relationship with that person. And just because that person's opinions or the way that they see the world differs from yours doesn't mean that they are not a nice person. It doesn't mean that you can't have a relationship with them. But that is very high level. And one of the things that I say to people very often is, just because you can have a relationship with anyone does not mean that you need to have a relationship with anyone. You need to choose. And this is where a relationship gets interesting, is because unconsciously we choose our relationships anyway. Even if I'm alone and I find someone else that's alone and I choose to have a relationship with them, and you hear the word, I choose to have a relationship with them. When I ask people sometimes, like, why did you choose this person to be in a relationship? I didn't choose. It's like, well, how did the person get there? You chose out of the lack of the need, or just being unconscious or unaware. That's fine. So to answer the question in that sense, having your values and being very clear on those parts of your life, it's very important. And if you want to have a normal or basic relationship, then selecting with that criteria in mind is a very good thing. At the same time, we are making those decisions at the level of the relationship that we are having with ourselves, because we don't have much exposure to the world. We think that the world is our little bubble. We think that there's only one religion in the world, or we think that there's only one perspective in the world. And yeah, so to keep your life very easy and simple, find someone that's, swimming in your own fishbowl. Find someone with what they call, you could say your similar values. And this is also interesting when people say, opposites attract. It's opposite temperaments attract. The values generally become common, and it is much better to have someone who has the same values as you. At the same time, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't have a relationship with them. What does happen, though, if someone does have a different value set to you, there will be way more friction, there will be a lot more discussions, and the question is, are you capable of holding those kinds of conversations and having those conversations without being triggered, upset, without feeling that you're wrong, or the one person's trying to convince you of their opinion, or you trying to convince them. So at the
And
base,
without becoming resentful over the long term.
absolutely. So yeah, that criteria is important at a very basic level, that selection matters, selection counts. And even me, you guys call me the expert, but even as an expert or whatever it is, saying these kinds of things, I don't like that way of looking at it, because I have the experience and I do see a different side of it. At the same time, you've got to take a person with, they walk into a dojo, or that's their first time at a gym, and you expect them to know all the advanced moves, and you expect them to be fit straight away. No, you got to let people become fit. You got to let people try and exercise. You got to let people try a diet plan, whatever that is. All of those basic things. Same thing applies in a relationship, and when we approach it, we've got to see that people are approaching it on the ground floor. They haven't gone to the next level yet. And it's not a judgment thing, it's an observation. And when you're on the ground floor, expecting someone, to, let's say, be at the penthouse level instantly, you're delusional. There's no ways that you're going to do that. And if you are on the penthouse level, talking down to someone on the first floor, you're making a critical error, because you're not that enlightened. In fact, if you are that enlightened, you don't talk down to someone who's not on your level. You go to their level and meet them where they are. And that's part of having a relationship. If you want to have a relationship, meet the other person where they're at. And especially if you feel that you're above them, then it's nice to support them up, of course. Meet them at that level, whatever it is. And again, it's only a perception, because a person who perceives that they're above other people, no, that's generally a massive overcompensation. And most of the time when people think that they're above other people, they're really covering up an insecurity in themselves. So yeah, having that stuff set up in the beginning, what are my goals, all of those things, it's very cool for a relationship. The thing is, ask yourself, what kind of relationship will that develop into? Because if all those goals are already met, all of those little boxes are ticked already, there's very little space for some sort of growth or development. And we go back to, where's the excitement? Where's that ambition? Where's the movement for growth? That kind of vibe. So that's why the basic relationships, and you see it often, people get together with that mindset. They generally get married, and they generally have children, and they also generally get divorced. Generally. I'm not saying it happens every time, it's general.
It helps to have, it's almost, if the person is in your fishbowl, as you described it, which I think is quite a creative way of describing it. If the person is in your fishbowl, then you kind of already have a semi-stable ground for you. Obviously, there's lots that needs to happen for it to actually be stable and to work long term. But you kind of have a base that you can build on, and then grow together and develop and keep growing into these values and life goals that you also have. Yeah, very useful.
No, definitely. And even to the point of same language, because we communicate different. So it's a nice idea and this is where people want to protect their culture. They want to protect their language. And it's a good thing. It is a good thing. It still doesn't mean that I can't have a relationship outside of that or beyond it. And you don't have that kind of relationship out of rebellion. I want to rebel, so I'm going to on purpose pick someone outside of my culture just to, to be very blunt, to upset the people around me, because whatever and that's what I said about the needs part. When you're doing something like that, you think that you're hurting other people. Meanwhile, you're hurting yourself way more.
In your very first answer, the question that I asked, you mentioned that to get into a relationship, it would probably be a lonely person meeting another lonely person and then just deciding, okay. So I guess it's two questions in one. Would that be the only thing that allows a relationship to start? Or because I always think of myself when I talk about these things, it's like I'm not lonely, me personally. And if you know me, then, well, you know me, but I'm not currently in a relationship and I'm pretty fucking happy. So I am not lonely. I'm also not, well, I'm currently alone, but like, is that the only thing that will allow me to be in a relationship the moment I feel lonely? And then also, like, everyone keeps telling me, oh, I don't need to look for a relationship. The right thing will happen when it happens. And when it happens, it's right in that moment. It's like, I honestly I don't believe in that. I think that the choices I make leads me to that moment where it's the right moment, whatever the fuck that may mean. But what's your perspective on that? And yeah.
Okay, so we'll take it very basically. Our biology, just being a person, our biology is driven to make more of ourselves. And the only way we make more of ourselves is we need to meet, need two people of the opposite sex to have sex together so we can make more. So our biology drives us to procreate, survive. So that's biology. So regardless of whether you're lonely or not, that's your drive. And your drive is to be around other people. Your drive is to make more of yourself. And you can't make more of yourself if you're literally by yourself. If you lived in a box, you can't make more. So your biology is going to drive you. And also comes back to where we started. When you say, well, I'm alone, but I'm not lonely. And I'm not currently in a relationship, and you're all good with that. That's part of the demonstration of what I mean is when you're okay with yourself, now we get to choose way more accurately what kind of relationship do I want to go into. Do I want to go into a relationship because it's just available? Or do I want to actually go into a relationship because, this is going to now take me further to, and as Andrew mentioned earlier, these are closer to my goals. And let's say one of my goals is to have a family and have children, then that's a goal, no problem. And that's where the door kind of opens up very wide, because if we haven't gotten that down first, that's where the relationship will develop from. So our biology is driven to be around other people. Our biology will drive us to do the craziest things. And that's part of where the stickiness comes in. We are driven by our biology, but we also have a mind which can make choices for us. So my biology looks at something and thinks, oh, that's really nice. And if I have the opportunity to, and it's just a chance that I could procreate, not that we actually do, because nowadays we've got contraception and all the rest of it. My biology is still driven for that. And it works both ways. This is both for male and female. And so the biological drive will drive us to be around other people. It's the mindset that will say to you, okay, do I choose this kind of person? Just because they look hot on the outside, they might not be a nice person, or they might not be in a position to be in a supportive relationship. And that's another big thing. So no, you don't need to be lonely to be in a relationship. In fact, oftentimes a relationship, when you said sometimes people are like, no, the right relationship will happen. Those are words that are said by someone they don't have the skills to get what they want. They are waiting for the world to make the decision for them. And most of the time, not every time, most of the time, those words will be said by a woman. Because a woman is in marketing. Yeah. So a woman's in marketing, she puts on the red lipstick, nice face, nice hair, looks good. So they're marketing themselves, and it's like, well, if someone likes this, it's like a flower opening up, and then a bee will come and get the nectar. It's like, I'm just here, and if it'll happen, it'll happen. So that's most of the time said by women. Where men are on the other side, we're in sales. We got to actually go and sell ourselves. It's like, hey, I kind of like your flowers, and like we're interested, and then we got to kind of sell ourselves. But once again, that just demonstrates to me, and this is part of the challenge that I personally had myself, because it frustrated me going, why do I need to think to myself, I'm lucky if I get into a relationship? Or, it's like someone says, oh, well, you met this person, or it was, let me introduce you to someone. But I could be walking through a mall, I could be out in a social event, and I could just even just walk past someone. And it's like, and for me, it's like, wow, that person is, that's the one. That's someone for me. I like that. But we've never been given the skills to go, like, I kind of like you, and at the same time we get all creepy. So we think to ourselves that we don't actually have choice, that we can't choose, and we can't create the relationship we're looking for. And it just comes down to skill deficiency, because, like I say, at school they teach us how to read and write, and they'll teach us biology, they'll teach us science, they'll teach us math, but they never teach us going, okay, how do you even just start a relationship? I mean, the word that's been thrown around even earlier, attraction. How do you create attraction? People think, well, someone is only attractive because of the way they look. So I've got to go to a gym, I've got to take steroids, as much as people say don't take steroids. But if I take steroids and I get bigger, everyone's like, oh my gosh, they got muscles. And of course, schools lie and say they don't like muscles, but they do. There's these little things. And the same thing is, even guys is like, no, I don't think she's really pretty. Meanwhile, it's like, yeah, I think she's quite pretty. We need to get past that stuff. And just because someone is pretty doesn't mean they're attractive. Or just because someone is, tall, dark, and handsome doesn't necessarily mean they're attractive. And when we get into this attraction game, it's what is attractive to you. And if something's attractive to you, and you can flip it around the other way, is if I have skills, knowledge, and expertise, which is very attractive, how can I put that on display without kind of bragging, without running around going, hey, I drive a Lamborghini, like, yay. And people, it's like, well, congratulations, I don't care. That kind of vibe. But that's what we tend to do. So these things are called fitness indicators. So it's an indicator to someone else saying that I'm fit. These things happen when, girls get boobs, as boys grow up and they get a beard. This is a fitness indicator indicating that you are now of sexual age, that now you can procreate. So we're signaling to each other back and forth the whole time. I'm of sexual maturity. And then we also want to signal to each other going, pick me, pick me, pick me. And then when you say to someone, okay, cool, I'll pick you, it's like, yeah, but I don't like you. All of these little things. So the interesting little bumps that we need to get over, because watch here, we are speaking about a relationship, but how often do we talk about, so tell me, what does it take to get into a relationship? How do I create a relationship? And now this is where the options get very interesting, because if I believe I don't create a relationship, or I don't know how it happens, I'm waiting for my friends to introduce me, or I need to go to, let's say, a bar or a club with all my friends, with all my backup, so that I can bump into someone else, maybe start a conversation, maybe say the right things for a while, maybe get a little drunk, just to give me a little bit of Dutch courage. And then maybe like something happens. And because something happened, it's like, oh, well, now you're familiar. And maybe I'll talk to you some more, and we'll start texting each other. And then suddenly it's like, oh my gosh, we're in a relationship and I met this wonderful person. Okay, let's just pause that quick conversation and let's play it the other way around. Imagine if we had the skills to, let's say, sometimes I say to people, these are the stories I've heard. But imagine that you walked into a garage cafe, like you walked into the garage shop to buy a chocolate, and you see something there that you like. If you had the skills, what stops you walking up to them and say, I've kind of been looking for you for quite a while. I don't know if you're a nice person. You look nice on the outside, but I want to get to know what's inside of you. And I'm going to give you an opportunity to know that I'm actually quite a nice guy. And if we can have a conversation, and maybe we might like each other, or maybe I like you on the outside, and I get to know you, and I don't actually like what's on the inside. But then there's no harm, no foul. There's nothing going on between us. But at least let's give it a chance. It opens the idea to there's a way more people available to us to actually have relationships with than we think. It's not a small fishbowl. And now with the internet, people date people from around the world. If you can't find a relationship in this day and age, there's lots of questions to be had. But once again, it's not a problem. It's because no one shares the skill that you need. And most of the time we put this under this umbrella. It's like, if you want to learn the skills, you become sick. It's terrible. You're manipulative and all that kind of stuff. It's like, get real. Most people are trying to manipulate each other all the time. When you see someone out in the street, or you see someone out at a fancy event, they've got their best on, they smell good. They're putting on this facade on the outside, going, like they're trying to put their best foot forward the whole time. So they're trying to manipulate you from the start. I'm not suggesting that you go to fancy events, in pluckies and shorts. I'm not saying that either. But this is what we tend to do. But if you can drop the whole manipulation game, going, I think you might be a nice person, and you might like me. Let's start there. I don't know. And if you don't like me, I'm okay if you say I don't like you. Okay, cool. Well, thank you for your time. I don't have to fight with you for this idea. It's like, well, thank you for your time. I respect your point of view. But and women actually have it the worst on this side, because you do have a lot of idiots trying to talk to you, and you got to push them off, because again, they don't have the skill.
You keep on talking about learning the skill, but how do you learn the skill? Where do you learn the skill? And what the fuck advice can you give to females? Because obviously well, from what I'm hearing, you're talking from a male's perspective, and it is not necessarily wrong, but it is more acceptable for the man to be the hunter. So, yeah.
I guess Alnika's asking whether she should sit on the table and look pretty and wait for the guy with the skill to come around.
That's never gonna happen.
Well, look, you ladies have way more options than the men do. So I know women don't necessarily agree with that, but it's way easier for a woman. And if I was in a woman's body, or if I had to offer any advice to ladies, the best thing to do is be aware of the difference between your biology and yourself. And what that means is your biology's got a whole lot of things running for it automatically, and knowing yourself. So when a guy walks up to you and says, how can I buy you a drink, or whatever it is, I'm just being very basic. Sometimes you've got a bitch shield on. It's like, please go away. But there's nothing wrong with being mature about it and saying to the person, thank you so much for your offer. I'm just not interested. You can be yourself. And the more that the woman is themselves, the more options they'll have. You'll definitely have a whole lot of people, coming up to you way more often. But here's a take on the other side from a female perspective. Go take a look at yourself in the mirror, but don't look at yourself with your own eyes. Look at yourself through the eyes of, let's say, a male or the other, or whoever you think is interested. See what they see. Because when you're looking in the mirror, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I've got a bit of flab here, or, something's hanging, or something's not quite pretty, or, I've got to do that. Like, that's what you're seeing. What we are seeing on the other side is we just think you are art. We think that you are literally a pretty picture. You're beautiful. And regardless of your shape, size, and color, and all the rest of it, we think that you're art. We think you're beautiful. And coming from that perspective, if a woman can see herself as beautiful and just behave beautiful, and when a man says, I like your dress, say thank you. I like it too. And of course the guy will say something stupid like it'll look way better on the floor. and this is where, because we were never introduced to, let's say, I shudder to call it a game, but we were never introduced into the game. In other words, play the game. And from a woman's point of view, you can even play the game even better than men. So when a man says, like, oh, you look really pretty in that dress, it's like, yes, you should see this dress on the floor, and put a big smile on your face. And the guy will be like, oh, is it? Like, yeah, yeah. In other words, instead of having some sort of issue, rather just have some fun with it. And there's nothing wrong with being upfront with a man going, look, I really appreciate your effort. I don't mind even speaking to you. And I know you might be interested. I'm not interested. or not right now. We don't have to be horrible to each other, and that's where, that's where the man will suffer rejection, and we hate feeling rejection. So we'll see something which is, and I've seen this more than once, and I've experienced it myself. You see something nice on the other side of the dance floor, and you think, oh man, I'd love to go and talk to her. And then if I went out of my mind and I went into her mind, she's sitting there going, I really wish this guy would come up and talk to me. So they're both wishing that, both of them will come up to each other and have a conversation with each of them, but both of them are too terrified to go and have the conversation. And from a woman's point of view, if you see something that's really nice, nothing stops you walking up to them and having a conversation with them. Nothing. But of course, this is where society and culture put these barriers around us. It's like, no, a woman should never do these things and all the rest of it. And then women always complain and going, how did I get into this kind of relationship? If a woman knows what she's looking for, I guarantee it's out there for you. Same thing. If a man is looking for a relationship, I guarantee it's out there for you. The question is, are you prepared to go and get it? And this is when I was talking about skills. When you say, where do we learn or how do we learn? Well, first off, we learn from life itself. And I'll give you the best learning ruler, if you want to look at it like this. The best learning ruler. Firstly, you take everything that everyone says to you and try it out. And then once you've tried all that out, do the complete opposite. I'll give an example. Valentine's Day, give her some flowers with a note and tell her that you like her. Try it. And she'll go, oh, thank you. It's kind of nice, whatever. And then you do it the other way around. You don't give her flowers and you just say, I really like you. And see where that goes. Because the one is, I see the smiles. The one is hidden behind, it's hidden behind a shield. But the other one comes from confidence. Wait, you're muted. Say that again.
I said, please don't try the second option, buy the flowers.
No, I'm thinking go with the second option. If it's like a new prospect someone to go into a relationship with, the second option is way better because there's so much you can do with that.
Well,
literally.
No, well, let's play it out, and then I'll play it out from my side. It's like, if I don't give you flowers when I first meet you, going, I'd like to get to know you, and we have a conversation, and then the next time I meet you, I arrive with flowers. I'm bringing you a gift. I'm not trying to win you over. I'm not trying to buy you. And this is very interesting because, very simply put, women are not prostitutes, even though they can be, same as men. But I mean, if a woman is bought or her affection is bought, she's practically a prostitute. So if you only like me because I buy you drinks at the bar, then what is our relationship based on? I'm going to provide for the rest of my life. You're going to expect me to buy everything for you the whole time. And then what is my relationship based on? So I need to keep making more money or buying you new fancy stuff just so we can be in a relationship. Not necessarily, but if the relationship started the other way, going, like, I really like you, and I like giving people flowers, I like giving chocolates, I love giving gifts, I like taking you out. At the same time, I also have high standards. And if you meet those standards, I'd love you to be the person that I pour all of my affection and all my resources into. So I'd love to bring you flowers. But before we get there, I need to know if you're just as beautiful on the inside that you're on the outside. And most of the time, and this is part of that bit shield that women have, is, they've got the shield on because they've got so many, there's so many prospects constantly all the time, because it's just like, I just want. And the woman's going, like, please, like, I need something, like, I don't mind, but it's a bit much. And of course they and watch where they're coming from. They're coming from a space of neediness. I need you, like, if I have you on my arm, like, it gives me status with my friends. So you're not in a relationship with them because of that. Where if we flip this around, and now we're going higher up in the levels, and also answering the question, how do we learn these things? We put these things into action. We go and practice these things. There's many a book out there. My general thing is, you read as many books as you can, and also take a look at some of the books which are very popular. Some of the books which are popular have some of the worst advice in them. A long time ago, I read a book that said, what women really want. And it just basically said that men are wrong the whole time. I've read that book more than a few times, and each time my head really hurts. But I kept digging into it because my head hurt, so I wanted to see what was going on. And what it does is it gives you different perspectives of different people. So some people have that perspective and other people have a different perspective, and you need to have multiple perspectives so that you can see another perspective other than your own. And most relationships aren't based like that. When people come to me for relationship advice or counseling, they don't talk about going, I really need to figure out what's going on with my partner. They just sit down going, oh, my partner's behaving really badly, and they're fighting with me the whole time, and all of that kind of stuff. It's like, well, okay, so do you want to speak about how your partner perceives you? Or how about this? Why don't we fix what's going on with you, and then maybe your partner won't irritate you that much. And if they irritate you less, maybe you'll be more pleasant to be around. And if you're more pleasant to be around, then maybe your partner will like you more because you're more pleasant. And with a bit of luck, maybe they'll start doing the same work on themselves, and you can actually have a nice relationship.
Yeah. I think to the flower story, it's also
Yeah.
interesting, and it caught my attention, the fact that mine and Alnika's response were completely different. But I think it also comes from the fact that I'm in a long-term relationship and Alnika's not in a relationship at the moment. And it's almost that perspective change, in the sense that in the beginning of the relationship, it's also like you kind of want to get to know that person genuinely. And I've gotten to know my partner genuinely. And it's now at a stage where, like, I appreciate my flowers every now and then. And I am happy without them, but I have an extra big smile if I do get them. But so I want to get to this point of the response that you mentioned to the dress pickup line situation we had going here. And what's interesting to me is the feminine energy that comes through it. I don't know who is the person who said that women are supposed to be or who creates this image that women are the ones who need to be approached. Like, I understand the concept, and I do think that at the end of the day, it's kind of like the man that goes out and who's the seller. But history is full of women who has essentially made men think that they are the ones who made the choices. And this is, I'm all open. Sorry, Alnika, yeah?
No, I just wanted to say there is this thing that women say yes to sex and men say yes to the relationships. That's what I've heard. I don't know if it's true, but in my experience, it is true. So women are the ones that encourage these interactions, and men are the ones that go, okay, let's do this for a long term. I don't know if I'm wrong.
It can be. I'm not too sure, actually, and perhaps Andrew can shed some light on that. But just to finish my thought on the feminine energy, is that there's a beauty almost in the response being a little bit witty from your side. And it encourages a playful nature. And I think women are way too often thought of as a serious or even a fragile person or being. And it's actually a very empowering and very beautiful concept to think of women as digging into that feminine energy and really just taking lead of a situation and taking lead of a conversation. I'm, of course, all for men being masculine, but yeah. I'm interested in where emotional intelligence fits into all of this, because I see a strong connection between being able to lean into your feminine, and for a man, well, feminine and masculine energies for both men and women, but the woman leaning into her feminine and the man leaning into his masculine, I see it as almost an emotionally intelligent person being able to really lean into those. Do you think emotional intelligence is an important thing in maintaining a healthy, longer-term relationship?
Simple answer is yes. Definitive yes. And this is the challenge, because most men are not necessarily emotionally intelligent. In fact, most of our emotions to men we're blind to our emotions. We don't like to think we have emotions, and even to the point of fear. Men don't like to admit that they experience fear. The one thing that definitely comes up in my mind when you're speaking about masculine and feminine, and this is very much speaking to the woman, is women don't realize how powerful they really are. A woman in her power, like really when she steps into being in her power, and I'm not talking about being destructive, I'm talking about being powerful. It is not only the most attractive thing, it's something that I'd very much lean into if I give advice to any woman, rather being your power. Because this idea, when you said, who came up with this idea that men need to pursue women and all the rest of it, and women are fragile, women are powerful, and that's part of where society is. They've tried to suppress you, they try to push you down a little. But the idea is, I want women to be powerful. We want women to be themselves. And at the same time, when I say that men are not necessarily that emotionally intelligent, here's something that might stir the female audience: is if you are part of the ilk, or you're part of the group that says that we are highly emotionally intelligent, just because you have a lot of emotions and you have emotions flowing through you, doesn't mean that you're emotionally intelligent. It just means that you're emotional. Emotional intelligence, let me give you a measure for emotional intelligence. I know the difference between being angry, frustrated, annoyed, upset. I'll make very clear distinctions between these things, because most of the time people are upset and they'll say, I'm angry, or I'm annoyed and I'll get angry, or I'm frustrated and I'll get angry. So they ball it up into anger. The same thing as love and passion and excitement and adventure. We need to know the complete difference of what these things feel like, what they look like, and the result that they produce. So emotional intelligence is actually quite easy. We just need to sit with it long enough to identify, this is what this emotion is and this is what it feels like, so that I can identify it. And if you look at it, if our emotions are strange to us, that means we have strangers running our life. So if you get to know your emotions and you know which emotion is coming up in you, even jealousy or fear, sometimes people say, you're jealous. It's like, I'm not jealous. Or you're afraid. It's like, no, I'm not afraid of losing her. And they get all this bravado. It's like, if you know what your emotions are, and let's say you're friends with your emotions, then as opposed to having strangers running your life, you're friends with your emotions, because your emotions are going to impact your decisions. And this goes both ways for both men and women. And then coming back to the whole thing of women themselves, is the more emotionally intelligent they are, firstly, they're a lot easier to be around. They're a lot nicer to be around. And if I was in a relationship with a woman who really she knows that stuff, she can become my coach. She can support me to get better at my emotions. And now we can support each other to get better at the things that, she's better at one thing that I'm better at something that she's not. We support each other to both get better, as opposed to looking at some sort of competition or going, oh, you just think you're better at everything, or, you're better at this and I'm not good at this at all, and whatever it is. It's that to me, it just lowers the level of the relationship. There was multiple questions that you asked there. I'll answer one more question. No one actually came up with this idea that, women need to be pursued, or the man always needs to be, he's the proposing one. It's just how biology works. It's just how biology works. When it comes to procreation, a man does not produce a baby. A woman does. So that's part of that value. That's part of that value that you have. But we've turned this thing into something that's, it's looked down upon. It's looked at, it's made to be wrong or sick. And it's not. It's beautiful. And at the same time, yeah, there's nothing. I mean, that's what a woman wants. A woman wants to see a man who's confident. And what shows more confidence than being able just to walk up to a girl and say, hello? That's the confidence that a woman wants. I mean, you see the smiles on your face. It's like, yeah, that's you want that. And that's also the flip side, where women, it's like, I can't approach any man because, it'll lower my value. No, that's only the perspective of a woman who doesn't value herself. But a woman is in her power, knowing that she's a full feminine, and she looks across the room and goes, oh, there's a man I've been looking for a while. The men, like high quality men, are very rare for this kind of woman. So she won't see it all the time. But when she does, it's like, that's what I've been looking for. Then why not go over and you don't have to be crass. You just strike up a decent conversation. You just got to open the door for the man. You got to open the door, and it works both ways. The man needs to open the door for the woman, and the woman needs to open the door for the man. Most of the time, men don't want to open the door, and that comes back to what Alneko was saying. Men don't want to open the door because they are afraid of being vulnerable. They're afraid to, let the inner. They're afraid of the inner self. And when you say the man says yes to a relationship, exactly that. It's like, we're totally up for sex, but this relationship deal, I don't know about that, because now I'm going to be taken off the market and whatever it is. And that's part of when, if we are emotionally intelligent and we can use our intelligence, I mean, think of the relationships that we can create. We can choose the one we want. Going back to selection, it's like, well, I chose you for now. I thought that you'd be great. Clearly, I was wrong. I misjudged the situation, and I think that you probably need to find someone else. Or if you want a lower level relationship, I'm very sure you'd find it, and I suggest you get on with looking for it. And I want a higher level relationship, so I'll go out and look for mine. There's no harm, no foul. There's no need for us to be nasty to each other anymore. But again, depending on how you look at relationships, and emotional intelligence.
I love this topic. I love talking about relationships and how people react towards one another. And I always feel like I know if I go into a bar and in my head I go, okay, I'm gonna get hit on tonight. It happens. It happens, and I know it's because I walk into that place and I go, okay, come get me. I have that attitude on me, so I know I can. It always happens. I don't know. I'm magical, but anyway. And if I go like I'm not interested, I just want to go to be with my friends or whoever I'm going with, then nothing happens. No one approaches me, no one bothers me. And when I'm in that state, it does feel like, just go away, you're bothering me. So it's women. I love being a female. I always question why people don't want to be females, because it's amazing. We do have a lot of power. We do. I mean, we literally, if I think of my parents' relationship, and I don't want to give my mother's secret away, but I'm sure my dad knows. He just allows it. But we literally manipulate the men in our lives the way we want them to act. Like if we want them to well, especially what I see from my mom, if my mom's like, she wants this, she'll make it as if it's my dad's idea to get it. And it's so powerful. And yeah, anyway, giving away female secrets now. While we're on the topic of emotional intelligence, so when you're in a relationship, you always get to this point where you have this feeling, this weird feeling that no one can actually describe, and we call it love. And just before that, you're in this sense where you get like butterflies, and that we call in love. But what is the actual difference between being in love with someone and loving someone?
Well, when someone says they are in love with you, essentially they accept all of you. When someone says I love you, in the sense that they have love for you, they obviously deeply care for you, but it's a completely different level. And also you're not swept away with it. And when someone says I'm in love with you, that level of acceptance of all of the parts, like even the parts that I don't like, or the things that you do which are crazy, or the things which you do which are not okay. We look at the higher value of the person, and that's part of the things we get in love with. At the same time, love in the beginning feels like an emotion, but you can be angry with your person and still love them. You can be disappointed and still love them. You can be jealous and still love them, which actually comes down, when we take love a little higher, love becomes that decision we make. So I choose to be in love with you, or I choose to love you. And when I'm in love with you, I'm quite literally swept away with more than what you just present yourself. I'm in love with the person, the being inside of you. I don't know if that makes any sense from that level. I'm sure there's a better way to put it, a lot more accurately. But because we love our siblings, we love our friends, but we are in love with our partner, or preferably. In other words, we put up a lot more from our partners than we do from other people. And also, we will do more for our partners than we will for other people. So when someone says, I'm in love with you, that means that I will, here's the statement, I'll go to the ends of the earth for you, I'll die for you. I'll do whatever it takes to just be with you, because it's that part of you which brings me not only closer to who I am and who I want to be. You know, I'm a better person when I'm around you, or you're a better person when you're around me. And if I'm a better person when you're around, which means you are bringing things out of me. You make me more honest. You make me more loyal. You just make me a better person. You make me a better communicator. You make me calm. We say these things like I'm happy. Then that's where we kind of say I fell in love with you. And that goes, listen to the conversation that we've been having. If we go back further, this is the barriers that we put up. And the barriers we first start, that's why I say we start with like, here's a bunch of flowers. I'd like to get to know you. And it's like, okay, well, I can only get to know you with a bunch of flowers. But if I can drop the barrier and get to know you and get past, the pretty dress, get past the makeup, get past the, even the Lamborghini or whatever it is, if I can get past all of the stuff, which you never take with you when you die anyway, if I can get past that and get to know you, it's way higher on the scale. There's a lot of people, I wouldn't say most, but there's a lot of people who are in a relationship, not because of the person they're in a relationship with, they're in a relationship because what that other person gives them.
Yeah.
It's still a relationship. I'm not mocking that. I'm not saying that that's terrible, but that's a different level of relationship, and that's where the relationship gets strained because if a person loses their job or they lose the house or something like that, the dynamics of the relationship change. And they say that when money goes out the window, love goes out the door. When money goes out the door, love goes out the window. Whatever it is. But when I say to you that I'm in love with you, it's beyond all of that. It's beyond the money. It's beyond the assets. It's beyond the car, beyond the house. It's beyond all of that.
I think for me at least, love is, as you said, that deep emotional connection. But I liked how you took emotion out of it almost, and you explained it as just this deep, genuine care for somebody else's well-being. And the difference between taking the emotion out of it and keeping the emotion in it is that it's not about how they make you feel, but almost about how you can support that person. And in my genuine, honest opinion, the best way I've been able to verbalize and articulate what I feel love is a deep, loyal connection. I feel it is that going to the end of the earth and having that loyalty towards that person that really stands out to me. The connection I see between this and Alnika's bar story is an interesting one, and I've been keeping it in the back of my mind the entire time. Pheromones and our unconscious connection. And I think this is what perhaps is happening with Alnika. I don't think it's a magic something. Well, it is magic, but I think we can put a word to it. And that's almost what your body sends out, the message that your body sends out when you enter the bar situation and you go, I'm open to this, or you go, I'm shut off to this. And it's so incredibly important to keep that in the back of our minds because it has a central role in these love-hate relationships that we have with other people. So I wonder, do you think, and we get here now to that physical attraction perhaps, do you think relationships can survive without physical attraction if that emotional and intellectual connection is strong enough?
Yes. So once again, looking at relationship and the level of, so can a relationship survive without any physical contact? Yeah, we can still have a relationship. And there are relationships, people call it sexless relationships. There's no physical intimacy, but we can still have a relationship. Nothing wrong with that. So simple answer is yes, you can have a relationship. And even the relationship you have with your boss, you're not having an intimate relationship with them. Well, sometimes we are, but you're not having an intimate relationship with them. But you still can have a relationship. But I know what you mean. In other words, can we have an intimate relationship without actually being intimate or having intimacy?
Can you be in a romantic love relationship without having that?
You can. It's just very different. So the simple answer is yes, you can. A lot more needs to be explained or spoken about around that.
Yeah.
And you can also have let's call it a completely physical relationship, and not any kind of intellectual relationships. In other words, the relationship is purely based on physicality. So both kinds of relationships exist. And even when it comes down to pheromones, well, biology, if you have a different immune system to me, I will find you attractive. When your immune system is very similar to mine, I'll find you actually quite repulsive. I won't like you. I won't like the way you smell. And I've been very sensitive to that myself. I actually had a relationship with a girl, and I couldn't stand the smell of her. Eventually, I've got over myself in the beginning, but I mean, eventually it was like, so we can pick up on things which are beyond. When I say, well, it's not basic biology, because we do unconsciously smell these things. We do pick up energy. We do pick up pheromones. We do pick up these things. So can I have a relationship beyond that? You can. Most people approach this relationship conversation very basically, because they want one relationship. They have their picture of a relationship. They have their idea of a relationship, and they think that's the only kind of relationship that exists, until one day they are deluded. In other words, the reality hits them a little harder, and that's part of the thing. So yeah, you can have those kinds of relationships. And also, coming back to emotional intelligence and coming back to relationships and all the rest of it, even if a girl's got this thing posted on her head going, leave me alone, I'm annoyed, whatever it is, if the guy, and it works both ways, whether it's the man or the woman, but if the person has the confidence, and if the person knows what they're looking for, and the person knows what they like, I mean, how many times have you actually sat down and put down quite a comprehensive list? Not that the list needs to be fixed, but at least have an idea of the things that you're looking for. And you see what they're looking for. They just might be in a bad state of being, in a bad mood tonight. But if that's someone that you actually like, you have a moment in time, and if you don't seize the moment, that moment is gone forever. But if we have the capacity to roll up, it's like, I see you in a bad space tonight, and I see you don't want to be bothered, and I got you. I'll keep all the other guys away from you. But I'll tell you what, I think get you something, and you're in a bad mood tonight, and I'll just, I'll be around. And if a guy comes and hassles you, just give me the signal. We had a signal overseas. Give me the signal. I'll come and chase him away for you. And also, from a woman's point of view, you tell me you'd much rather appreciate that than, some folks like, oh, I see you in a bad mood. I can get you out of this bad mood. I've got all the moves. I know how to tickle you in just all the right places. It's like, dude, until I like you, you ain't tickling me anyway. So go away.
Yeah.
And,
Andrew, I'm very, as we get, this is a very long podcast episode. I don't think we've had these long conversations yet, but I have one or two more questions before we get there, if you'll indulge us. Talk to me about red flags. I am very interested in, it's difficult, and it connects well to that point of emotional
or the
insecurity. The ick is another very good one. But emotional intelligence, part of it is being able to differentiate between what is a red flag and what is a personal insecurity. And ick, actually, Alnika, that's a very good one. It connects so well. The ick also connects to the point of pheromones, because I mean, kind of, if it happens, there's very little that you can do about it. It's off-putting. But
like an ick is stupid. It's like seeing someone brush their teeth and not liking how they brush their teeth. Like, what the fuck? Honestly, I always think like this is so stupid. Anyway,
well, Andrew, what do you think? How on earth do we differentiate between whether something is a red flag and it should be seen over, or whether we should look at ourselves to identify the actual problem?
Well, the standard answer is we always need to look at ourselves first, but I'm going to park that one, because that's the answer to the whole thing. So we'll park that one for now. But in essence, also, if someone has the ick all the time and they're overwhelmed by the ick, that by itself is a red flag. So red flags for me are very simple. That someone that is not willing to look beyond their own scope of opinion, thinking that their opinion is the only opinion that exists on earth, that's a red flag. There's a difference between having emotions or being emotional. If someone is just emotional all the time And so I'll give you an example when they're like, I'm always emotional and it's just because I'm a girl and I have all the license to be emotional. What they're saying to you is like, I can behave however I want to. I can go off the deep end at any time. You know, I'm a time bomb waiting to explode. And if I do, you know, you just need to catch it. It's like, that's a red flag. That's a red flag. So red flags, very simply put, and it also comes from the person, because some people will not only ignore red flags, but there's different red flags for different people. Because I'll speak from an I perspective. If I'm capable of dealing with your red flag, then I won't see it as a red flag. You know, I'll just see it as a brand new project. I see it something. This is something interesting.
Yo, that's optimistic.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're all twisted in our own way, you know. that's part of the thing. It's like, we're all twisted. So if you don't have the capacity to deal with it, then that is a red flag. And here's another challenge. Sometimes the person doesn't have the capacity to deal with the red flag, but they are blinded by the possibility of just getting intimate with you. So they ignore all the red flags. So the thing from a red flag perspective, a red flag is very simple. If someone can't step outside of their own opinion or listen to something else, or they have the ick about everything, or their standards, they have standards beyond their own capability, those are red flags. In other words, they want, let's say, I mean, this is a standard one even over the internet. You know, they want the guy who's 6'5", tall, dark, handsome, muscular, rich, and of course, completely loyal and faithful only to her. But it's okay for her to eat chips and chocolates all day long and, you know, to be very blunt, look like a swamp donkey. And then it's like, yeah, well, I'm exaggerating for effect, because this is their opinion, or and that's a red flag. It's like, wait, you have the demands of everybody else, and you're not even looking at the demands that you're making. You wanted to make demands of everyone else, but not of yourself. That's a red flag. You know, you want everybody to be happy and fun, but yet you don't even know what fun and happiness looks like, because I can tell it by the look on your face. Yeah, so no, those are red flags for me instantly. And it's okay to get beyond a red flag for a little while. In other words, sometimes the person's got a red flag because, you know, the state that they're in. But if these red flags continuously come up, run. And yeah, I don't know if that answers the question. So even for me, people having the ick about everything, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they didn't polish their shoes, like ick. Or, you know, I can't believe they don't know what the latest trend is. Or, you know, or they have a Samsung, they don't have an iPhone. Ick, I can't believe that. It's like, dude, honestly, here's one of the statements that I've already said to people directly. It's whatever you are marketing and selling, it's not worth the price. So you selling something is not worth the price.
Yeah. I think perhaps I think they are very silly icks. People do, and perhaps if you find an ick off behind every bush that you went looking for it, then perhaps you also need to do some introspection, and it's possible that you are looking for these icks to look for a reason to obviously end the relationship or not continue with it.
And obviously, if you're looking for it, you're going to find it.
You're going to find it. But I do think there are some very serious red flags that I don't think people should overlook.
Give us one.
And pardon me?
Yeah, give us one. What do you think is a red flag?
Well, I think something like, if you don't agree with your partner on, well, okay, so again, I'm approaching this from a long-term relationship perspective, and
Sure.
I can perhaps imagine myself as not in a relationship, but that's not of any worth to me at the moment. But if you have a little bit of an issue with your partner about how to perhaps discipline your dog, that's kind of a red flag, because at the end of, if you can't work through that, then that's a red flag. At the end of the day, you're going to have to discipline your children. And if you can't, and you mentioned this, which I really liked, it's only a very serious red flag if you can't actually deal with it. If you can't deal with, and there's no compromise, there's no proper conflict resolution to get to an agreement on how to discipline your dog, then you have an issue. And this issue is going to escalate. And that's the point that I'm also trying to make, is I think taking these red flags as serious enough to actually discuss and to not keep in the back of your mind and to build resentment about, put it on the table. And that's also an important thing, at least that I've learned about my own relationship, is if something bothers you, put it on the table. And I say this with, unfortunately, I have to put a disclaimer that I am a big user of I am fine. My poor partner. But he has noticed and he knows that if I say I am fine, it is not I am fine. But
It
it's
is
better
never.
to put it on the table and discuss it and have a proper way for you to resolve your conflicts and actually talk through it and come to a conclusion. Very, very important. Andrew, I think we can come to our last question, which our previous guest left for you. And the question that is dedicated to you this week is, so if currency is how we measure worth in finance and economics or whatever, what do you think we use to measure our worth in our personal lives? This is a bit of a thinker, I think.
Well, in essence, you mentioned currency. So what is the currency that you have? And once again, it comes down to value. So value to market. The highest currency that we have is how much do we value ourselves? Because how much do you value yourself, whether you're in a job market, whether you're getting a job, getting a promotion, creating a job, creating a company, or even creating a relationship, creating a family. When it comes to our currency, we all have our own kinds of currency, and it will come down to the value. And the number one value is how much do you value yourself? Because when you value yourself, you'll get a better job, you'll get the promotion, you'll also have a better relationship, and you'll have better boundaries. So when it comes down to currency or value, ask me the question one more time, please.
No, I think you perfectly answered it. The question is, if currency is how we measure your actual worth or value in economics or finance, then what is that currency that we use to measure our worth in our personal lives? And I think you beautifully answered it. I think your own value is kind of, it connects beautifully to our discussion last week, Alnika. Sorry, I have to make that connection. We discussed last week this point that fiat currency really doesn't, money is not the way for you to measure how much work you put in and what you get out of it. This money is this concept that's almost dangling in the middle. And I think it's beautiful. Whatever value you put to yourself, that's your currency. And that's what you're going to use to also determine what is being poured into your life and what's being taken out of your life. I think it's a genuinely beautiful connection to be made. Yeah.
If I had to be a little more accurate in the sense of what is your currency? The currency is your state of being. That's the currency, or who you are. Because based on that, that is where you'll make the trade. And then you tie that to value. Because if you value yourself, you'll make a good trade. If you undervalue yourself, you'll make a terrible trade. And that's part of where women need to see their value. They're very valuable, very precious.
Yeah.
You got work to do, but we've all got work to do. And it happens both ways. It's just getting beyond those insecurities. Yeah. So the currency would be simply your being. Your being is your currency, and your state of being is how that expresses itself, and how you value yourself and the value that you place in yourself. That's what you bring to the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in that moment, sorry, one more thing. In that moment, it's got nothing to do with your bank account. In that moment, you're rich.
Yeah. No, I think it's a stunning answer, especially on the spot. Something came to me just now as you were speaking as well. And I want to kind of add it. I know it's an afterthought now, but I want to add it to red flags. And this connects for me to the value that you put to yourself as well. If you, and beautifully to the beginning of this discussion about non-negotiables as well. If you value, which I know Alnika, for example, does, family relationships, and you meet somebody who it's an absolute struggle to spend time with your family, that is a very serious red flag. And if your currency is the value that you put to yourself and your state of being, then that's not a red flag that I'd advise you to look over. That is something that in the long term is going to continue, perhaps leading to conflict and be a major struggle block in your long-term happiness and relationship.
It could be,
Yeah.
but not necessarily.
Why do you think?
Well, think about this one. I don't need an answer, but pose it as a question. Is that a red flag or a difference of opinion? So sometimes we think we have an issue or we think it's a red flag, but it's just a difference of opinion.
But do you
I
think
thought the
if
same when I thought the same. I thought the same. Like coming to your previous example, Andrew, of how to discipline your dog. That like that wouldn't necessarily be a red flag for me, because my argument would just then be, well, if this is my dog, I'll discipline my dog the way I feel comfortable, and if it's your dog, then you can discipline the dog the way you feel comfortable.
But it's not my dog or his dog, it's our dog.
Well, if that's the case, then do it when I can't see you, and I'll do it when you can't see me.
See, now here's a red flag. It's like, okay, so we're not going to find it's got to always be your way. That's a red flag.
Oh, okay, very well. I think we'll leave the comment section open to solve this. Is it a red flag or is it a, I don't know, my own issue?
No, those things. When you mention family, I know you're wrapping this up. But when you mention family and even disciplining the dog and everything like that, it again comes down to what are you capable of negotiating and what can you actually work with. And then if you can't work with that stuff, then it can become, and it's a red flag for you. You know, those are the non-negotiables. So it's a red flag is not something like typing into Google, give me a list of red flags that I can, because some things that are red flags for other people, so the difference of having a difference of opinion, because once again, if we have a difference of opinion, the question is, okay, can we negotiate this? And watch this. Just coming back to the dog, and I'm going to speak to Annika here. It's like, okay, you want to discipline your dog your way. Your way is going to lead the dog to be a monster. It's going to tear the couch apart. Do we want the couch to be torn apart? If the answer is no, then are you willing to look at something new? And if they're willing to adjust that, then, you know, once again, now we got a relationship. Now we're in negotiation. But don't have this thing of, well, let's just agree to disagree, or let's just compromise on this problem. It's like, no, there's no compromise here. We're in a relationship, and you compromise in a relationship is dangerous. So that, like, when the person is very rigid in their thinking, that alone is a red flag. And it does come back to your values. So, for example, you know, let's say I don't like visiting your family, and it's not necessarily a red flag. It is a difference of opinion. At the same time, if you raise a red flag and it's a red flag for you, know that it's your red flag. It's not their red flag, it's yours. And out of that, you make a choice. If that's a deal breaker for you, fine, you break the deal, but you're not breaking the deal because of them. It's a deal breaker for you.
Oh, that's a good distinction.
Big difference.
That is a very good distinction.
Yeah. So now we're talking about something which is prime in relationship, is take responsibility for your stuff. Yeah. So now we're opening a door for a brand new conversation.
When people say it's not you, it's me, they actually mean it's not you, it's me.
It really is.
Well, that's how I see it. Yeah.
Okay, Andrew, I'd really enjoy all this stuff. So yeah, thank you very much. Keep going.
Before we go on to a new topic and get to that dangerous part where this turns into 4 hours, one last question, and I think it's a fun question, because we've been talking about relationships, and I love hearing these things. But what is your favorite pickup line?
Hi, my name's Andrew. It's that simple.
Andrew.
I wish we had a big following, and I would know that if I go into a bar, someone would give me this this pickup line and say, "Hi, I'm Andrew."
Yeah, and it'll turn out that his name is actually like Andre or something completely different.
Something completely different.
Oh, that would
Look,
be
I mean,
great.
you can also throw another one on you. If someone bumps you and said, "Hey," and you turn around and you look at them, it's like, do I look like a criminal?
No,
It's
no.
just to start a conversation. That's what it really is.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't say silly
No,
things. But
beautiful.
yeah, Anya, I don't know. Like, do you enjoy our conversations, or any other questions on your side?
Yeah,
Have we
no,
answered?
no more questions from my side. I find, well, particularly, I find lots of value in our general conversations, and that's why I appreciate doing this podcast and continuing with it. But I found today's episode particularly interesting and intriguing. I think the topic of relationships is a complex situation. You described it earlier as a big river with all these river lead outs and bleed outs. And I really do see relationships as just one big dynamism between your humanity and your values and your attraction and things we have control over and things we don't have control over. So yeah, it really is a very interesting topic that I think more people need to not only pay attention to in the beginning of the relationship when you want to know how do I signal I like him, or at the end when it's on the rocks. I think there really needs to be a continuous focus on how do I improve and grow in my relationship as well. So yeah, really do appreciate your time today.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me.
very much.
I appreciate it. This is actually quite cool. Actually, I haven't done much on my podcast, and so doing this with you guys gets me to at least keep my podcast or keep it out there and keep me rolling in it. So yeah, I appreciate that too. Thank you.
It's a pleasure, and thank you very much for being here. Okay, bye. As jy like wat jy hoor, subscribe en maak Ruhmoer.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Ooh,
That
Andrew,
was so
thank you
cool.